Hey, good evening. Welcome to the HoosLeft Podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from an unapologetically leftist perspective. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I'm broadcasting from Bloomington. So, in a week and a half, Hoosier Democrats will gather at the Indiana Convention Center in downtown Indianapolis for the 2026 State Democratic Convention. Delegates from all 92 counties will vote for the party platform, representatives to various committees, and their most high-profile job, candidates for the statewide offices of Secretary of State, Treasurer, and Comptroller. Now, to my knowledge, there are still no declared candidates for the latter two offices, but the Secretary of State's race is both contested and contentious. In one corner, Bo Bai, son of former governor and U.S. Senator Evan Bai and grandson of iconic U.S. Senator Birch Bai, bearing a famous name and an impressive fundraising haul fueled largely by his father's business contacts, many of whom also invest heavily in far-right candidates and causes. Progressive Indiana Network's Sierra Martin, the recently unpeeled Hoosier Lemon, has done impressive work following the money. In the other corner, the people's champion, lifelong Hoosier, Bargersville small business owner and progressive Blythe Potter. She's been running a truly grassroots campaign, visiting every county in the state and presenting a forward-looking vision for the office that has drawn copycats from unexpected places. Blythe is my guest tonight, and we'll talk about her plans for the job, why her experience has prepared her for the role, and why she is actually the most electable candidate come November. But before that, let me quickly ask for your support. This is an independent media project. We don't paywall content. We don't charge our candidates for interviews, and we certainly don't have billionaire benefactors. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. It is a foundational principle of Who's Left and the Progressive Indiana Network that we refuse to hide important information behind paywalls in the middle of a political crisis, even if that's not in our financial best interest. So please, if you find value in this work, and it is a lot of work, go to progressiveindiana.net and subscribe at the paid level. It's only $5 a month or $50 for the whole year to help us build the infrastructure that will pop the right-wing media bubble in this state. And while a paid subscription is the best way to help us grow and sustain this project, you can help in other ways by liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, providing feedback, and forwarding our content to your people. You get us when you can. Mostly, we just want you here in this community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Please join us. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at whosleft.us, and on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Who's Left. That is HOOSLEFT. Progressive Indiana Network's handle is the full spelled out name on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, it is PIN Indiana. Please help us grow with a follow wherever you're at. Tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together. Now, let us welcome our guest, candidate for Secretary of State, the one, the only, Blythe Potter. Blythe, welcome back.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you again.
Great to see you. First time we're doing this in the live setting here on the podcast. So a lot of fun. Glad we get to do that together. Lots to talk about tonight. It has been a long slog getting on toward the convention. It's coming up soon. Just how you feeling as we get close to this thing?
I'm so ready. I'm so ready for June 6th. It has been a very long year and almost month. I'm ready. I'm very ready.
So let me start here, Blythe. In this state, our leadership over the last couple generations now, if you look, Todd Rokita, attorney. Curtis Hill, attorney. Mike Pence, attorney. Victoria Spartz, attorney. Even on our side, Evan Bai, attorney. Joe Bonnelly, attorney. Back to the others. Todd Young, Jim Banks, attorneys. Mike Braun, not an attorney, but Harvard educated. I don't know, like the so-called best and the brightest, the people with the most education, with the most credentials, seem to have led us directly into the hole we are in. I don't know, man. Maybe we do things differently for a change. Let's try something else out.
I totally agree. And I don't actually think having a law degree means they're more educated. It's just a different degree. I have quite a bit of education. I have an MBA in conscious capitalism. So, right up the alley of this office, we need to be paying attention to not just shareholders and the businesses, but also the stakeholders, the communities, the environments, people within and outside of the business that those affect. So my education has taught me not only to manage people and manage organizations and do administrative work, but also to look at the bigger picture. How do the decisions we're making affect everybody else? I have education in my professional career too. We won't talk about that. But also, I think my experience living in Indiana for 44 years and being an active member of communities and being involved in nonprofit work and realizing how terrible the government treats not just us as residents, but also our social services and the people that need the most help, or maybe need the most help at getting access to elections and things like that. That is experience and insight that you can't get a degree in. Like, it's just lived experience. So I think that's being underestimated a lot in this race.
The Secretary of State role has a sort of unique variety of jobs. That they're tasked with performing. There is the voting element, which I think has gotten a lot of the attention, and yeah, rightfully so. We theoretically live in a democracy, and the current occupant of that office, Diego Morales, courted controversy by sharing all of our intimate data with the federal government. So the voting aspect of what the office does is certainly high profile, but there is also this element of the office that just involves like regulating businesses and helping businesses enroll, do what they do, and access services. And we here at Progressive Indiana Network had to start a business at one
Mhm.
point, get the LLC, fill out some paperwork. The website looks like it came from 1997.
I did. It did. I was told from someone within the office that the campaign finance website itself was done in 97. So I'm pretty sure the InBiz website has not been seen many updates since then either.
And well, how does that affect Indiana businesses, the people in the state that want to start a small business? How can you make things easier in that regard, in the office, before we even get to the voting stuff?
Yeah. Well, so I think in situations like this, it is really important to be an end user, not just someone who's like guiding people along the way. And the office doesn't necessarily oversee businesses themselves, but it's the paperwork, the organizational paperwork, storing that data, saving that data, in some cases selling that data, which we know is happening on the state level. But making things more accessible, not just on a desktop, but also on your phone, it's more than anything, it's going to help our young entrepreneurs, because as an elder millennial, if it's challenging for me to navigate it and I had to go elsewhere to find information on SCORE and SBA, or the ISBDC thing is like at the very, very bottom and not easy to see. Like, if it's not intuitive and easy, sometimes people just get frustrated, like, well, if I can't fill out an LLC paperwork and figure other things out, what are we really doing here? So I think more than anything, this creates a barrier to entry, not just for entrepreneurs, but people in business schools doing any type of education in the state. If you're going through navigating that system, so I this is a service job. Well, all politics are service jobs. Politicians take our tax dollars to provide a service. Maybe that's governing. Right now, we're not really being governed well, but this really should be a customer service area, because it's not partisan. It doesn't only target certain people or people with certain statuses. Like, this is open for people who live in Indiana to take advantage of if they need it.
I was always told that Republicans are so business focused and business friendly, and Indiana is a business friendly state. It doesn't sound like, and again, you're somebody who has been an end user on this as a business owner.
Mhm.
Maybe not so much, at least for the small business owner. Maybe the folks who have all of the corporate resources in the world and can
Mhm.
pay to navigate these processes. They, might be easy for them, but individual entrepreneurs, maybe not so much.
Well, it can very much be a cronyism and nepotism type thing. Like, um, rarely small businesses get TIFs or tax increment finance or abatements, things like that. And when that happens with larger corporations, small businesses like mine, we recoup that money. We are not getting any tax breaks. We saw that happen even like through COVID with the PPP loans. A lot of these big businesses just got millions of dollars. We got like 8,000. So it is for a state that claims to care about small business owners, they do a really poor job of it. Um, but most of the people in charge aren't small business owners. They're not normal people. They're not usually people living in rural communities like me. They're not the average Hoosier. And I think that's another perspective I bring that probably no one else in this race does bring to the table.
Yeah, I would say certainly. So, I guess I'm hearing the outlines of the beginning of a plan. I've heard other people, maybe in online spaces, say that you're not a serious candidate, that you're like some sort of influencer, and that you don't have a plan. Can you, number one, how does that make you feel, just as a person who's been out there running a campaign for over a year at this point? And number two, like, answer that criticism.
Yeah, I am very serious. I'm so serious that I have a babysitter so I can do this. I'm so serious I'm missing my daughter's recital for the convention. I'm so serious I've invested my own money in this. Like, I'm so serious that like I love this state so much that for 3 solid years I have done, yeah, since 2023. I've done nothing but engage in local Democratic Party politics. That doesn't mean I've been a Democrat for 3 years. There's a new fun online thing that the rumor that's going around that my ex-sister-in-law, who I haven't spoken to in 16 years, started. So in 2023 is when I really jumped in. I was like, okay, it's not working with community service organizations and nonprofits. How else do I support my community and make these changes? And it is politics. Politics dictates everything that we do. So I am such a serious candidate that I've run for municipal office twice. I got very close and for the town council race. I won my primary in 2024 in Johnson County, which, by the way, is a red county with no elected Democrats. And I've had people in leadership in the Democratic Party tell me to not mess with Johnson County because it's a lost cause. And yet here I am, a rural resident, not saying that our rural communities are a lost cause and fighting for our rural communities, literally tooth and nail. I was elected precinct chair. This is my second time being elected a precinct chair this year. I've been an elected state delegate in 24 and this year, and I was elected a national delegate. And I'm also quite certain I'm the only one in this race who can say that. So I'm a very serious candidate. I'm so serious that this is also, I want to be the Secretary of State, but I also want to build the Democratic Party, because in a two-party system, there's only one way out of it. And I'm hearing the same things my whole life. I grew up in a Republican home. So for the first 23 years of my life, that's how I identified. And the things I heard the most was, we're picking the lesser of two evils, so we'll pick the Republicans because the Democrats lie. And I'm taking ownership of that, even though I'm not part of that. If I'm part of the party, I will take ownership of the bad voting or bad decisions we have made in the past. But there's a real movement and a lot of momentum in the state of Indiana that I've been a part of for several years to change how politics interacts with its communities and its people, to show up, to listen, to take the constructive criticism and make things more accessible and show people how to get involved. And I've been doing that for years, showing people how to sign up to be a PC and a delegate. So I don't know. I don't know how it could be more serious unless someone like wants my firstborn, which you don't get her. But yeah, I'm serious. And I do have a plan. I have a great plan. One, my platform is, in my opinion, the most comprehensive platform this office has ever seen in a candidate. And two, I've been working with the Indiana Rural Summit on the periphery for several years. And the Rural Summit has been teaching its members and people who you've been on those calls, the cohort. We've been listening to people from other states like Virginia, Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania, seeing what's happening in Montana and other rural communities, because you know what gets neglected in Indiana is our rural communities. The city centers, the people with the money and the most population, they're the ones politicians target, and they treat us like, oh, do you need a hospital, Johnson County? Do you really need a hospital? I don't think you do. We're going to take that away. That's how we are treated in rural communities. So I'm serious enough that I know we need a paradigm shift, and we need a change of opinion in politics and how things are operating. And I want to be a part of that. And that doesn't mean I want to get rid of anyone who's been involved, but if we are going to have a viable party and an inhabitable state going forward, not under GOP rule, we're going to have to start letting more people in and let more people engage. And we have to do something different. That means we need to campaign differently. We need to communicate better and differently. And I know I need to work on that sometimes too. But we also need to be talking to people who've been disenfranchised, who we don't have data on, who we don't know how they vote because they may have never voted before. Our largest voting bloc are non-voters. So we do have a plan. We do have a strategy, and we have a ground game that's ready to go come June 7th. So I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone who still disagrees with that.
There's a lot of threads in that answer there, and I guess I want to tug at several of them. But you know, like the last thing, I guess I want to address first. Like you mentioned that we don't have a lot of data on folks, and you know, for anybody out there listening who's been canvassing, one of the things that you do, you know, you got the Van app, or you know, I'm sure the Republicans have something very similar on their own side, and you're basically targeting people that you have known to vote for you for, you know, your party in the past. And it just sort of gives you this like self-reinforcing feedback loop where you're not talking to the folks who have been left out of the system for a long time. And for Democrats in Indiana specifically, you mentioned the rural communities. One of the criticisms of Democrats is that, well, you know, we're not relatable, that we like look down our noses at rural folks, that we're elitist. You know, I think certainly it would help have somebody who's, you know, existed in those spaces like yourself to go out there to talk to rural folks, and maybe not, you know, folks who aren't from that sort of way of life.
Yeah. And I think it's important. And also having sustainable infrastructure for other campaigns to be able to replicate. You know, one of the hot topics is, oh, you don't have enough money, but there's nothing my campaign is lacking. Our social media presence is better. Our footprint is better. And no, it's not because I have more time on my hands. Someone said that because I'm an unknown person, I have more time on my hands.
LOL.
It's actually the opposite. I don't even know where I was going with that. But no, our platform is good. Our footprint is good. I've got an amazing paid team, and we do have a good plan. We're just doing things differently, and we're using different tools that are now available that haven't historically been available. And we do need to get rid of that elitist mentality. You know, it puts people off, and I'm walking a fine line with that because, you know, I'm wearing a dress shirt here. For me, I'd prefer to be in a regular t-shirt and sweatpants because that's how I'm most comfortable. So trying to make politics more engageable, but also we need to be teaching and informing people about politics. And a lot of the problem is in our rural communities, it's either hard to get to our voting locations or vote centers, whatever that may be. Or if you're, you know, not middle class or above, you may not be able to get off work to go vote. You may not have the luxury of going and standing in line at 5 a.m. if you have children, or can't afford extra childcare because you can't drop your kid off until 8 a.m. Like there are so many barriers to entry right now for the average person who's suffering under the economy and just all of the things. So I know what that feels like. I've been so broke I had to decide between gas and food. I've worried about making mortgage payments in the past. I know how expensive childcare is. I've been living it since I met my husband when my stepkids were 7 and 4. Like, I know what that feels like. And I also know the trauma and the abuse that it feels like we've been taking in this political atmosphere. And I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged as well, because a lot of people in Indiana, particularly people who refuse to vote, even if they're registered or able, they feel used. And I think I can change that because I've been listening and I know what that feels like. So,
and that trauma and that abuse comes from the 1%, from the oligarch class, from the people who, and you hear it from folks out there as you're canvassing, as you're talking to voters, that both parties are the same,
yeah.
and that's why a lot of people go out and they don't go out and vote, because they feel like Republicans and Democrats, they both have the same donors. Republicans are honest about being asses, and Democrats will offer you platitudes while stabbing you in the back, and that's sort of just the feeling that I think a lot of voters have. And they need somebody that will actually go out there and criticize the system and both parties for having been complicit in that, and offer a positive vision going forward. You mentioned working class folks not having time to participate in the political process a lot of time. A big part of that is not necessarily knowing who all the candidates are, what they stand for, going online, doing all that research. It takes time that a lot of folks just don't have. It takes bandwidth that a lot of folks just don't have. We were talking, you and I, in this space like a year ago about putting out voter guides, doing that, getting that information into people's hands to save them that time to let folks know what the candidates stand for, like other states do. I think you were an early leader in that space and having a plan for this office to do just that.
Yeah. And I think it's so essential. We're also in a really unique time, and I think it's a good time to capitalize on this. People are paying attention in ways they've never paid attention before, not just in Indiana, but beyond. We saw that with the primaries. We've seen that with the No Kings movement and the protesting and the rallying. We don't have time, but we have made time to push back against the fascism and the authoritarianism and all of the things we're experiencing. So this is a really good opportunity to change how we approach things in politics, and getting people plugged in enough to hear about these things this is the year to do it. I really think this is a make or break year for the party. But the ballot book is something other states have, and I want it to be very comprehensive. We'll have digital and physical versions for people who don't have internet access. They can opt into that. We will find funding for that, whether it be HAVA grants or something else. But I've heard people rumble that there's no money for that. I'm sorry, if there's money for a trip to Hungary or 2 or 5 or a luxury SUV, I think we can figure out how to get people information about their elections. But it will invite people into the process. Tell them how to find their county parties on all political spectrums. Tell them when the election is, how to register to vote, where your polling location is, what each office is, how many people. And you helped me. Oh, here's another myth buster. I didn't pay you to advertise. You helped me get people to sign up as delegates. So, making those calls, most of these people don't know what this process is. And most people who went to vote had no clue what a delegate was. So just giving them the information for them to ignore, fine. But ignoring them and pretending like they should go searching for themselves is wrong. But I also want place for candidates to put information on these books, even if it's only like 500 characters. I want to create a ballot book, modernize the systems that the office oversees, and bring some ethics back into politics, and show Hoosiers that Democrats really do care about the communities, and we can do this better and smarter without having to get millions of dollars from really shady people.
I think, one of the things about the office is bringing that information to the people. And Indiana has certainly not been good about that to this point. It's like, gee, the Republicans don't actually want democracy. They don't want us to vote. They don't want us to participate. They want to keep us in the dark. I think of the Secretary of State as very much a cheerleader for democracy, like the face
Yes.
for like voting and being active in our community and like getting out there and like getting attention and drawing attention to the process. And I think that is something that you are very good at doing, and like making things exciting. It's we talked about one of the things you hear about this race in online spaces is that it's an administrative job, and like yeah, it is. It's not something you need to have a law degree for. It is something that is more business focused, and that's something that you are prepared for. But it's also something where just being outgoing and present and being able to like draw attention to the voting aspect of it all is a plus, is something that we should be trying to do more of in this state.
Yeah, and it is an administrative job. It really should be a boring administrative job. I've done administrative work for the better part of the last 20 years, so that's up my alley as well. But yeah, there's no reason why this office can't also be serving the communities that we have in the state of Indiana, but also being a cheerleader, because Lord knows Indiana needs a good cheerleader. We're really bad for our metrics, where our environment's bad, our schools are being defunded by school vouchers and school voucher supporters. And it's just, we're in a tough spot.
We are in a tough spot. And, listen, we've sort of talked about, you have plans, actual plans for the office. And it is unusual, I think, in many ways that your plans, which you've been running on for a while now, for months and months and months, are being copied in many places. I want to say Greg Ballard, former Republican mayor of Indianapolis, trying to get into this race as a independent. They're starting this new Lincoln Party, they call it. Again, more power to the guy. I'm all for more democracy and more candidates. I think that's a great thing. But he basically lifted your plan.
He did. And now, to be fair, other states have this. So it's not like I was like, oh, I just made this up. But it is pretty rich to see like this experienced politician like come in without a platform and then adopt bits of mine. So
I'm interested to hear your take on the dynamic of the race, a potential three-way race, a potential four-way race, honestly. The libertarian candidate's going to be in there for sure. We might even have a socialist candidate. Could be a five-way race, could be a thing. But like on the other side, the Republicans, Diego Morales, the current occupant of that office, looks like his own party is ready to throw him overboard. They've got their convention coming up on the 20th of June, 2 weeks after the Democratic convention, and I think Mike Braun is staying neutral in the race, but high-profile Republicans like Jim Banks and Todd Rokita are withdrawing their endorsement from Morales. They got a new guy they're trying to slot in there. Max is Engling, I think. Forgive me if I remember his first name wrong, but he's a staffer for Banks.
Yeah,
far right. Extreme guy. There's another couple folks in that right. Diego's not leaving. He said he's staying in it. You got Dave Shelton, the Knox County guy. He's more of a, quote unquote moderate sort of Republican. You got Jamie Rittenauer's kind of a perennial candidate, Christian nationalist in this race. Weird dynamic over there on that side. I don't know, like, who would you rather face? How does Ballard being in this thing affect it? Does that make... Do any of these serve you or serve Democrats better? How do they affect the dynamic? Why does having this crowded field make Blythe more likely to come out on top in November?
Well, and my team would say, oh, we'd prefer to go against Diego. I mean, honestly, that would be really fun. Just the height difference alone would be like... but people need to stop pretending that Hoosiers are dumb. Hoosiers are not stupid. A lot of people don't vote because they are tired of the same BS every single year and being lied to. Hoosiers are paying attention in ways that we have not seen before, and I think we need to honor that. And they see the writing on the wall with the Republican Party as well. And all of them, every single person in that race is complicit in getting us here. Not only did they vote for Diego Morales before, they voted for Mike Braun, they voted for Jim Banks. All of them have been horrific for Indiana. And up until a few weeks ago, Mayor Ballard was a Republican. Up until a few weeks ago, people were supporting Diego. And I think it's all too little too late. Where were you screaming at the top of your lungs at the end of 2024 when we all saw what was happening? When we were worried about what rights we were losing? I'm sorry. It's such a hard space to inhabit, but all of them are complicit in this. They got us here. They didn't just get us here in 2024. They got us here before 2024. So as far as I'm concerned, none of them are qualified. They have done nothing to help this state. They have helped themselves, they've helped their donors, and they've helped the party. And I think that's what's really unique about this race is there is a conversation that has been happening in the Democratic Party long before I became active in it, about how we think things should be done. And there are valid arguments on both sides of the conversation, and it's not something we've been willing to have publicly. And this race has shined a giant spotlight on that. So now we don't have a choice. Are we going to work together? Are we going to support good platforms, people who know what it means to live here and get them across the finish line, or not? Or are we going to keep doing what we've seen happen over and over where we lose? And I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration because we have an opportunity to really build this party and earn trust back with the state of Indiana by doing something different. And yes, I know it's a risk, but I think it's riskier to do the same thing we've been doing over and over again, expecting a different result, than it is to try something new, honor where we are, and really work together, because Democrats have been working together to rally, to protest, to call our representatives, to get people engaged for a long time. And I think we've just accelerated that over the last 18 months. So I'll take on any Republican. I do not care. I know my platform is better. And I will absolutely treat the people of Indiana significantly better than any of them will.
You mentioned protest. Obviously a lot of folks in this country, more than 8 million, the last No Kings rally here a few months ago, are upset enough by our current administration to go out in the streets. And yet I've heard the criticism that because you have been out there visible at protest, photographed at protest, in your military uniform, holding the flag upside down, that is somehow a negative against you, that that I don't know, that Republicans can smear you as some sort of like radical for exercising their First Amendment right to protest in this country. What do you say about that?
I say I did that very intentionally, knowing there would be photos taken. I'm not dumb. I did that in January or February of last year. I did that because we're in a really bad place. I, at one point, was willing to die for this country. I went to a war we should not have been in, and I didn't want to go to. Some of our Democratic representation agreed and voted to send me there, which is unfortunate, and part of the reason Democrats get such a bad rap. I did that because I think if people can see a woman who women always have a larger barrier to do anything in this country. And I know that I'm saying that from a place of privilege, being a white woman. But seeing a female veteran taking that risk, knowing what the criticism will be in a red state, I was hoping that would actually open people's eyes up and have a conversation like, oh crap, there's a veteran amongst many other veterans, and there are multiple upside down flags. Perhaps this is worse than we think it might be. And it is that bad. The flag upside down means our country is in distress, and we've been in distress for a long time. And now it's like It's really bad. It's really, really bad. It's bad enough that the introvert in me has shut itself down to run for public office on a statewide level because I think it's that bad.
And another one of the criticisms, I think, of Democrats from working class folks, from folks that have been disillusioned from the political process, is that we don't stand for anything. That like we hem and we haw, and we don't want to get pinned down and say the wrong thing. Folks can't say that about you. Like, you go out there, you take a stand, you're not afraid of the consequences. You will take the hit if necessary. And a lot of times, I think Democrats, we are afraid to stand 10 toes down on our values, and even our own voters, in primaries, in conventions. We don't actually choose the person who most closely represents our values, who reflects what we want in a candidate. We psych ourselves out and we vote for who we think we can win, who we think is electable. And you hinted at this a little bit ago. That's what we've been doing, I feel like, at the state level for 20 years now.
At least
losing
20 years.
Consistently doing so.
Yeah, I mean, Glenda Ritz, she had an amazing campaign. Greg Ballard actually ran a grassroots campaign, was outfunded. Now it was for Indianapolis mayor, but still a huge race, right? So it is possible. It is absolutely possible. We will have to do a little bit more work than we usually do as Democrats. And I think that's also part of the problem, is it's much easier to throw a flyer at it or a cable television ad. And that's fine, but this is not time for that. This isn't just a marketing and advertising venture. This is, we've got real work that needs to be done in our communities, and with each other. We need to be able to trust each other, not just within the party, but other sides, because we're not going to get out of this alone. And I'm fine with holding myself accountable. No one will fight for Indiana like I will, ever. No one will fight for our voting rights like I will. And I'm very confident in that statement.
We talked a minute ago about, fighting visibly, going out, protesting, letting yourself be seen doing such, God forbid, being photographed. I understand there's also some Halloween pictures that maybe some folks that I think are controversial. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes. So my ex-sister-in-law, 16 years, have not spoken to her. I saw this a few months ago on a comment, and I was like, oh, come on, Abby, you can't be doing this. Well, now some of my favorite frenemies, actually they're not frenemies, they don't like me, are regurgitating the entire portion of it. And it's all blatantly false. But part of that was that I've only been a Democrat for 3 years. That's not true. 5 years, that was done 5 years ago. I don't think a Republican would have dressed their child up like Ruth Bader Ginsburg or wore a mask in COVID, of all things. So yeah, I have been on the unlearn, and I think this is another reason I'm more electable. I know what it means to identify as a Republican. I know what it means to grow up in a rural red community where you are Republican, whether you like it or not. That's just what we do, right? It's not worth voting anywhere else because we will be a red state. That is what I grew up being told. And coming home from Iraq in 2006, part of that is I have been divorced twice. My first husband's girlfriend sent me her pregnancy test when I was in Iraq. They were dating each other before I left, which I suspected but didn't know. And then came home. He had stopped paying all the bills. So yes, I left him. If anyone's ever been in a military relationship, an army marriage, it's not usually that great. It's really hard. So anyway, I came home, got divorced, had to move in with my mom. At that point, you couldn't be on your parents' insurance at 26 in the Army because I was only a reservist. I had 90 days of insurance from the United States Army before I had to find my own. And that was the first point in my life I was like, oh, those people that I say like milk the system and live off the government, which is actually our taxpayer dollars. No one lives off the government like politicians and the military. By the way, no one. That was a real light bulb for me. Like, oh my God, the way I've voted, the way I've said things, Yeah. It's more than just the bad Democrats. So and I think that's a good experience to have in a state that has been treated this way.
I think, I've heard this criticism too, like, oh well, Blythe used to be a Republican. Well, yeah, like 20 years
20 years
ago.
ago.
Like
I am
you've
44. I know I
you've
look
come to
27.
your you've come to your membership in the Democratic Party through a lot of thought, through a lot of
Mhm.
deconstruction, to really thinking about what you value
Yeah.
in politics and in society, and it's not just like, well, we've always been. It's not like a birthright kind of thing. Like, well, that's and furthermore, like, to be a Democrat or to be a Republican in a two-party system is largely meaningless. I
Yeah.
think in Indiana, you can call yourself a Democrat by pulling the D ballot in a primary. You can run for office as a Democrat by doing that in two primaries in a row. Like, that's all it takes to call yourself a Democrat. You don't have to stand for anything. You don't have to have any values that you state. Um,
Yeah.
and likewise on the other side as well. I mean, they have their own internal divisions. We were just talking about some of them, but like, what do you say to folks who are like, well, she hasn't always been a Democrat, and maybe somebody else in this race has always been a Democrat?
Okay. I mean, I think there's an argument to be had that I came to this conclusion as an adult, as a taxpayer, as a voter, as a female in a state that females are getting rights taken away from, intentionally. I was very intentional about this. And also, I have run 2 municipal races the way you're supposed to, down the middle. I'm sure in your archives, you have a video footage of calling me the Blue Dog Democrat because I put it on my website because I was told that's a good idea. And so I have done the middle of the road. We're just going to be moderate centrist and we're going to be kumbaya. It does not work. That's not authentic. And so that's part of where I am here now too, is I've done this experiment on smaller scales in rural red areas. It didn't work. But this resonates more with people, being authentic, being willing to screw things up, talking to people, listening to people, taking in constructive criticism, pivoting when I need to. And I don't think anyone can say that I have not taken most of constructive criticism to heart as a candidate. I wasn't born into politics, so I've not been groomed into having the right talking points my whole life. And it is a learning experience. And I think I'm learning alongside with the best of them. And I don't know. I think we've done the same thing for so long. It's just time for a different candidate.
And we talked about labels, right? And you choosing to be a Democrat or choosing to be a Republican, like, it also matters, I think, who you get your money from and who you work for. And you can call yourself a Democrat, but if you are taking money from Republican mega donors and then working for Republican mega donors, what good does having a D next to your name do? Yeah.
That this is also a criticism I get. It is not negative to state publicly available, factual, reliable information. Much of like what you just said. And that is one way to campaign. That's the expectation. That is what has been expected for several years. Not working. And yeah, we need money. I will raise more money. Imagine if I were the only person running for this race. It would have been a lot easier. And we will continue to fundraise. I argue I think this could be national, like literally having a grassroots candidate, someone who is paying attention to how people want candidates to be running in this party, especially in Indiana. I think it could be really amazing. So, but I also want to say that, kind of talking about that, there have been very unfair things said on both sides. Things get heated on all sides, with all sorts of relationships. I don't like it. It's not what I stand for. I have never directed that. I have asked many people. you've been on those threads. I have asked many people many times that I that is not, I want to be elected because I am trustworthy. I have a good plan. I know what I'm doing, and I'm showing up in my most authentic way to represent the state in a way that we need to, not because someone else was bad, right? And I also don't think my opponent has directed any of the negativity either. So my focus is and always will be on the office and serving our state. Um, and money will come with that, but I don't think our campaign is lacking anything right now. We have a really good strategy. It's being more fiscally conservative with our money, but it's literally getting more bang for our buck as well. We have a fresh perspective that our state and all political parties need. We need this so badly. We're going to speak to and have been speaking to the disaffected voters, Democrats, enlightened Republicans, independents, new voters, people who will never vote at all because their opinions still matter, regardless of how they engage, or regardless of whether or not I like them, or regardless of whether or not I will vote for them. And I think that is the piece that we miss from politics. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to vote for each other. We could wish ill on each other, but their opinion and their vote as a registered voter, it still matters. So we have to start putting human rights and fundamental rights. That needs to be the baseline. We don't take those from people. And I think we only honor that by paying attention to where we're getting our money as candidates.
And, on the money front, I think a lot of times money lines up early behind the name candidate, behind the where you think folks are going to wind up going. You have to prove you can win to get the money in a lot of cases. And I think, if you win this thing at the convention here on June 6th, then more money will come in. It will certainly resonate nationally. Like you said, that would be a very big upset, and more money can come in that way. But it's not just about the money, to your point.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris in 2024 set $1.5 billion on fire, and still lost. You have to actually stand for something to inspire people to come out. We're not, you hear it, our opponents, not necessarily our Republicans, it's the couch.
Yeah. Well, and to your point with Kamala, I was a delegate for Kamala, and I hated her stance on Gaza and not being able to call it a genocide and pushing back against that. And people don't realize that matters. It really matters. And if it matters to someone my age, an elder millennial, we know it matters to our youth. Things like that do matter. And I think it matters more than money. So the money will come. I am very prepared to run competitively at the top of the ticket, support down ballot candidates, precinct committee people, which I've already been doing, the local and state party leadership. Our team has already financially supported the House and Senate caucus in the state and other candidates and county parties as well. So we're already doing that work with such little money. So
you hinted at it a little bit a minute ago as we were talking about some of the passions that are inflamed online in this internal debate. And I think again, inside the tent, family gets heated, I think, when we argue amongst ourselves more so than even with the other guys. But I've heard that sometimes your supporters can be passionate, like I said, and that it reflects poorly on you when maybe some of us. Never me, of course.
Never. I was going to say present company included.
say things online that maybe sometimes we regret or don't regret.
Yeah.
But we can be pointed, we can be direct, we can be snide. What do you say to folks who think maybe your supporters' behavior online doesn't reflect well on you?
I hear you. It's really tough. And this is an argument I've had with my husband. We know this has been a struggle here. It is really hard for me to be proud of my military service and say I fought for our rights and then be a candidate and be like, oh, but you can't say that. So I think a lot of this passion comes from a place of fear and worry, because we went from 2024 thinking, oh my God, we have a chance at this, to like, we're worse off than we were before. And that is terrifying. It is terrifying. And I think that leads us to communicate in ways that we might not otherwise do in person. Or if we were able to have a conversation, have the time to really talk about what we mean when we say things or whatever. So I hope people can be objective about this. And I've shown up for the state. I've been to all 92 counties, even when the barriers were put in place. Not all 92 parties allowed me into their party or to speak to their delegates, so we've had to be creative. And if nothing else, I think that shows that we can be creative going forward as well.
Yeah, and we should note that these passions are high on both sides. There have been things said from official surrogates, I want to say, on the other side that are, perhaps outright lies regarding your largest donor, which are not true. And when we compare donors straight up, we know this other guy's benefactors have large, long public histories in the media, and it's documented what they stand for. Your largest donor, God forbid, pulled a Republican ballot in 2024 because there weren't any down ballot Democrats in the primary to vote for.
Yeah, and that's common in many rural communities. Kathleen is an amazing human. She is that unicorn that we wish all wealthy people were. I'm so lucky to have met her. She lives in Indiana. She's from Indiana. She's raised her family in Indiana. The woman managed a Chuck E. Cheese. Like, she knows what it means to be a Hoosier on so many levels. And I'm fine to get criticism for that, but I'd rather my large donor, which my largest donor still isn't the same dollar amount as some of my opponent's largest donors. So yeah, I knew that would come. And I knew before I accepted the money. We had a lot of conversations. I may have even texted some of our group threads that you and I are on, like, hey, this is likely happening. Like, what do you think about that? So yeah, that's part of politics, but she's a lovely lady. She's very, 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 very far from MAGA.
Yeah, and she's not, on Trump's board of peace, or, writing his university policy, or donating to school privatization organizations, and on and on and on and on. I could go on all day. Again, Progressive Indiana Network, Sierra Martin's Hoosier Lemon series, well documented. I guess, Blythe, with a couple minutes we have left here, what has been the most frustrating part of this race over the last year as we come toward the end, and what has been the most rewarding?
Oh, the most frustrating is, I'm so sorry, I just swallowed wrong. Really, the systemic barriers that have always been there. I saw it with Dr. McCormick, Dr. McCrae. I've seen it with Destiny. We saw it with Kamala. We have seen it with so many women in so many spaces, but especially politics. I've seen it as a small business owner. I've seen it just as like a normal person going about their life in Indiana. And those systemic barriers I expected. I did not expect the organizational barriers to be placed in my way. That has been frustrating. To see party leadership intentionally try to divert support or visibility. I am so sorry. That's frustrating. I've lost friends over this for seemingly no reason. But the most gratifying part is this community we have. This really started out I didn't even start as a campaign. Like, I was just going to go to all the county parties. I'm so sorry. See, I'm a real human. My first intention before I decided I was going to run for this was to introduce the public to our county parties, to build the county parties on social media. Because if you follow, which you're my friend, so you've seen all of this happen, if you follow Johnson County Democrats, it tells your friends, hey, maybe you should follow them too. So really trying to spotlight that these county parties are killing it. We have got new leadership, we've got new members, we've got packed rooms all the time, even in Johnson County. And we have a list of all 92 counties and their social media handles and a lot of the young Dems and things. So if anyone wants access to that, let me know. But this started as party building because I see the need for that if Democrats are going to succeed. And then that the campaign just came naturally because, well, if this is what I'm trying to do, let's do a bigger platform and let's make this really productive. Let's really put some fruit behind this and some effort behind this. And let's change how the state interacts with elections. So there's a huge coalition of people who are on the side of doing that. They may not identify as Democrats. They may not be part of the resistance. They may not even be voters, but there are a lot of people who care a lot right now. And I've gotten to meet a lot of them. So it's been amazing.
So with the last couple minutes we have here before we got to run, what's just your last word to Democratic delegates out there who will be voting in this race in 11 days?
If you have not seen me, if you have not heard from me, that is not intentional. As of this evening, I will have at the very least, called every delegate that we have a phone number for, and at the very least left a voicemail. My door is always open before or after the convention, regardless of the outcome, because I want to build this party. I have to have a state that I can grow old in, that my daughter wants to stay in, that my stepdaughters want to stay in, that your kids want to stay in. So I am in this for the long haul, whether you all like it or not. But, there's a lot of people who don't know that we do have strategy. I do have a paid team. I have had a paid team for a long time. We're running and building a different type of campaign and politics. And we are a force for change in Indiana. And none of this has anything to do with being progressive or moderate or Republican or Democrat. We have created a campaign that honors the space that we are in, and where I believe, and where polls suggest, the majority of the population in the state and beyond want politics to go. So we're trying something different. We're listening.
We love to see it. I am shamelessly in your corner here. I do not pretend to be neutral in this race, and I'm so glad that we get a chance to talk to you here before this convention here very shortly. Stick around. I'm going to say goodbye to the viewers. I'm going to send you backstage, but don't leave. I want to say goodbye to you off camera. So I will see you in about 3 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, Blythe Potter for Secretary of State. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on the HoosLeft Podcast. All right, that was Blythe Potter, candidate for Secretary of State. Once again, if you are a delegate, please support her with your vote here on June 6th at the Democratic Party Convention. I will be back this week on Sunday, as usual, for Who's Left This Week, Indiana's only unapologetically progressive Sunday morning politics show, where we talk about the week's top stories from U.S. and international news to what's going on right here in our state and how it's all interconnected. Tune in on YouTube, Facebook Live, and of course at progressiveindiana.net. Blythe will be back with us as a panelist and will be joined by Hancock County Democratic Party Vice Chair Chuck Gill, an Army vet and a Navy vet together. It will be a compelling watch. Plenty of other good stuff this week on Progressive Indiana Network, and we can't do it without your support. So please consider contributing to Who's Left and the wider network with a paid subscription if you're able. This independent media project relies solely on the generosity of kind patrons like you to make this information available for free to everybody. Again, that's at progressiveindiana.net. We could also really use a follow on social media at Progressive Indiana Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the same handle. Over on Blue Sky and TikTok, it is PIN Indiana. You can find me on most of your social media sites at Who's Left. Send me a direct message on any of them with feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns, or email me directly at scott@whosleft.us. Finally, please forward the show to a friend and have them pass it on too. Let's keep building this project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left Podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.